Hope you guys like camping, because this video is intense.
This video is sponsored by World of Warships. I really didn't want to start playing to make this, but here I am doing it. This is a massive online game with a ton of different warships, and I thought it was going to be sort of a slow simulation game, but it's a nice happy medium between that and a more fast-paced shooting game. There's a lot of historic war vessels, and you can continue to unlock newer and newer ships in World of Warships. So every week there is a steady cadence of new stuff, new missions, game updates, and all that, just to make sure you guys always have something new to do. You guys can register and receive 250 gold, 1,000,000 credits, the USS Charleston 1 port slot, and 3 days premium time by using the code BattleStation2019. So go ahead and check that out. Again, that's BattleStation2019 when you grab World of Warships. So the sponsored content is over right now, but I'm actually going to go back and play the game for a little while. Enjoy the video. So the T440p is a beefy 14-inch laptop that you can heavily modify. And this kind of started with the Lenovo Legion laptop that we had, because it's extremely powerful, but it's also at a price point where, you know, getting into a laptop, if you're not going to be doing a lot of gaming, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you're doing gaming, that's it. That's the best laptop. It's not too heavy. It's only about a pound heavier than these. It's a 15-inch laptop. So I highly recommend it for that. But one thing I liked about it a lot was the keyboard, the feel of the keyboard. And I realized, oh, they've borrowed a lot of this technology from the old ThinkPads. So you can get one of these and have a similar feel. And also the build quality on ThinkPads is, well, they use terms like military grade and all these marketing terms and stuff, but these things are built like tanks, as is the Lenovo Legion that we looked at. And you guys will see some videos on that soon. But if you want a 14-inch laptop that can outrun most of the, over $1,000 laptops for under a few $100s, this is where you start. Now, we've got two different examples here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and we're going to modify both of these. So here's what we're going to upgrade. We're going to upgrade the screen to a 1080p panel. We're going to upgrade the keyboard to a backlit keyboard. We're going to upgrade the hard drives. We're going to upgrade the M.2. We're going to upgrade pretty much everything under the hood, including the CPU, because you can get a quad core in here. And all that together is still going to be significantly cheaper than the newer laptops, and it's probably going to be faster because the CPU in this laptop is a 45-watt part. That is way higher powered than today's i7s, which are usually around 16 watts, or maybe sometimes even under 16 watt. So they're like efficient, they run well, but this is probably going to be faster. All right, so the first thing I want to do is show you the two different laptop options you have. Now, if you can find one with an NVIDIA GPU, it'll usually have a few upgrades already. This one said it had a 1080p screen, but he lied, so he sent me back $70. That was nice. It comes with Windows 10 Pro. A lot of times you'll see that. Now, you can usually get this laptop with or without an operating system on eBay. If you grab it with an operating system, it's typically the same price. So I recommend doing that if you're going to be using Windows 10, because you'll have a serial key here that you can use easily. Now, if I'm going to format this or wipe it, I would like to make a backup of the key before I do that. I'm just going to ghost this drive, but it's usually good practice to go ahead and grab the serial number of Windows before I do that. And there's an easy way to do that. Just go to Command Prompt, make sure you run it as an administrator. You guys can see it all here on the screen. And then it'll show you your key. There's an easier way as well. There's an open source piece of software called ShowKey Plus. So I like to grab that on GitHub. And here it gives you all the information. We've got Windows 10 Pro here. We've got it with the laptop for $120. I think that's a really good deal. And you can just go down here to the bottom and click Save, and maybe like email it to yourself or whatever you want to do. But just saves you a text file, and then you're good to go. And it also has an SSD pre-installed. But the main reason that I like this one is it also comes with like the backlit keyboard and stuff like that. So you don't have to do as many changes with this one, but it's priced significantly higher. Also, the NVIDIA 730M is, it's like a few frames per second faster in games than actually just using the Intel integrated graphics. So it's just going to make things hotter, and I probably recommend going with a regular laptop without the NVIDIA, and I'll show you why in just a second. So here's the regular version, $105. Now this one had just a crappy i5, right? It's $105, got 8 gigs of RAM. You're going to upgrade everything, so that's a really nice starting point. You're going to upgrade the screen. You can upgrade to a backlit keyboard. So that's probably the direction I would go, and I've got a little hack that'll make this even cooler than the other one as far as like thermals go. So first off, let's talk about what you need. If you don't have a screwdriver set, get a freaking screwdriver set already. I really like having these little guys. Ugh. Ugh. One of the things I hate about laptops is all those ribbon cables. But these tweezers make it easier. I wish it could have rhymed. It was so close. Next up, I like to get a heatsink. You guys can grab just pretty much any M.2 heatsink. But the size of the M.2 in there is about half the size of the standard heatsinks that you're going to get. So you're going to have to either cut this in half with some sort of a pipe saw or just take it to your local hardware store. Mine did it for free. Took about 10 seconds. And they were like, yeah, we'll cut that in half for you, man. I love cutting stuff in half. Is that copper or aluminum? I was like, I don't know, man. I think it's aluminum. They sold it to me as copper. Also, you're going to need a Torx screwdriver set, and that's only to replace the CPU. All right, now let's upgrade the display in this unit. For both of these, we're going with the same exact display because we want 1080p, and there is one model that has everything we need. It's a matte display, which, not as glary and glossy. Plus, you're going to be upgrading from a TN panel to an IPS panel, giving you much richer colors, better blacks, better contrast, better viewing angles. It's an upgrade in every single way. The one you want is B140 HAN 01.3. You guys can get 0.2 as well. 0.3 is the better one. And 0.1 is glossy. So if you want glossy, go ahead and get glossy. I'm not going to stop you, but this is the one that I highly, highly recommend. Now, to replace this, you don't even have to take the back of the computer apart. All you have to do is just slowly start using your fingernails and going around the inside bezel and prying it up. Don't go too fast here. Just slow and steady, guys. Just all the way around. And it'll pop up. It's just little plastic hooks that pop out. Now, once you get that removed, you're going to notice that the panel is attached with 4 screws. You just simply remove those and then very gently fold it down on top of the keyboard. Don't pull it out or anything like that because there is a ribbon cable that's secured with a little latch. Once you see the ribbon cable that's secured, undo the latch and just very easily pull it out. Now, in order to put the new panel back in there, it's super simple. You just plug it in, secure the latch, fold it over, lay it down, and screw it back in. You're done. Just pop the bezel back on. That's it. That's it. Turn on your computer, and you magically have a 1080p 14-inch laptop with a beautiful display. Guys, I'm really satisfied with this screen. The first thing I noticed when I turned this on is, holy shit, the color quality of the IPS screen versus the TN is night and day. Also, the viewing angles are better. Let's go ahead and see and make sure that the 1080p is working. Check that out. 1080p. You guys can play around with this. Now, if that's all you're going to do, you're good. But let's go ahead and start upgrading some things under the hood. First thing you do, before I get too ahead of myself, pop out the battery. Don't want that causing any problems. Take out 2 screws with a medium-sized screwdriver, not the big one. Whoever did this put them in at an angle. What a jackass. Always good to have a magnetic tray. We'll put a link to that so you guys can grab one on Amazon, but whenever I'm building, always grab a magnetic tray. We've got one that's just full of junk and then one that's always ready for building. So that's that. Slide down. There it is. What on earth do they have going on with the RAM in here? This is the first time I've opened this up and taken a look. So I'm going to pop the RAM out first because that's going to be upgraded entirely. 2 little pegs on the side. Move them aside. Pop it out. 2 little pegs. And now we've got 2 4 gig DIMMs for no reason. I don't know. Just now, when you open this up, there's going to be an empty M.2 slot, and that's over in the top left corner. Let's put an M.2 in there. It's just an empty, lonely slot. It's right up over there by your Wi-Fi card. So you have a couple little wire antennas that you'll need to move out of the way. It doesn't matter if it's lying on top of the M.2 when you're done, but just go ahead and install the M.2 right there. You're going to need a 2242 form factor, so it's 42 millimeters. You can't use a full-size M.2, and this is also very important. It must be a SATA-based M.2, not an NVMe.M.2. So that's going to limit you to 6 gigabits per second, which is going to be around 500 to 550 megabytes per second. And there's not a lot of options for this. Not a lot at all. I really like the Kingston, but they're hard to find. You can find the Transcends online. Now, these things run a little bit warm. This is the 256 gigabyte one, so I'm going to recommend that one for the base unit. And if you guys want to step up from that, go ahead and grab the 512 gigabyte version. This would be a hell of a Linux drive. And again, both of these run a little warm, but I was shocked when I put the heatsink on there. It dropped by like 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. So that's a huge improvement. There's not a lot of airflow over there in that little pocket. So you have to have a heatsink on there. I mean, it'll run all right, but you don't want it to throttle or slow down or just, die before its time is up. Next up, let's add some hard drives. So we have two different spaces here for 2.5-inch hard drives. Now, one of these spaces, you're like, I don't see it. Well, that's because you got to take out the DVD drive. The DVD drive is very easy to remove. All you do is remove one screw on the back that's sort of a locking screw. It doesn't come out all the way. It just loosens. Once it loosens, you can use your finger to push the entire sled out. And then you've got an empty spot there that you can fill with something wonderful. And you guys love it when I say that, don't you? So I use this DY Tech hard drive enclosure I grabbed on Amazon. And I like this one because it has a faceplate that matches the side of this laptop. You can get these without faceplates. And then you're going to end up doing a lot of bending and maneuvering. I got two of them to see which one was better so I could tell you guys. The one I got without the faceplate was kind of a headache. You have to bend and maneuver and pull the faceplate very gently off of the DVD drive and then snap it onto the hard drive enclosure. Caddy thing. It's not worth it in my opinion. Just go ahead and get the one for $11.59. And then it's time to put a hard drive in there. So we've got a few choices here. For the base model, you need to go with some space here. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. If you're just doing documents and stuff, you can go with like a 480 gigabyte version. But in Justin's computer, we put the 960. That's going to be plenty for all of his Dungeons and Dragons stuff. All those PDFs and documents and videos and movies when he's traveling and all that sort of thing. This is the Kingston UV500. And you can also check out the SSD now, but the UV500 is like about the same, maybe a tiny bit better. But if you see the SSD now on sale, that's also a good one to look at. And one other thing I want to note about Kingston, I'm using Kingston mostly on the inside here. Kingston is the biggest manufacturer of memory in the world, and most of the OEMs out there and most of the different places you go to hospitals and stuff, there's a very likely chance that they're using a Kingston OEM product on the inside of their laptops, computers, whatever. So they build reliable stuff. And for my computer, I want my entire music library on here, and I want a whole bunch of stuff. Also, these things are really good at 720p gaming, so maybe I'll put some games on here. I'm grabbing the SUV 500B, and I'm getting it's the 1920G. This is a 2 terabyte SSD, guys. This is some serious ridiculousness. Plus, it comes with 256-bit AES encryption. If you want, you can get that going. Get yourself an encrypted drive in there. Now, I got the entire kit. This kit comes with an enclosure. It comes with a 2.5 to 3.5 sled. It comes with a little, buffer on the bottom. Since it's a thin drive, if you need to add this, you can. So it comes with all that stuff, and that's what I'm going with for the extreme option. Next up, if you're buying these things, they probably already come with some sort of hard drive. So on the base unit here, it came with a 500 gigabyte SATA drive, just a spinning disk, not super fast or anything like that. So we decided for the base unit, we're going to keep the 1 terabyte Kingston SSD, the 256 Transcend M.2, and we're just going to keep the 500 gigabyte standard spinning disk drive in there. But for this one, I decided to go with something for media storage, and I'm going to put, like I said, I'm going to put all my music and everything on here, so it's local. So I decided to grab this 2 terabyte Fire CUDA. They say it's a gaming drive, but this is a very efficient and fast Seagate 2.5-inch drive, and at this price point, it's hard to really argue with it. And this thing goes on sale frequently, so just keep checking out prices on the Fire CUDA. Normally, I don't recommend using a spinning disk, but if it's just for media and games and that kind of stuff, you can't go wrong with that. Now, in order to install this other hard drive, you'll notice that the other hard drive is installed in sort of this weird plastic shell. So you'll unscrew one screw and just sort of wiggle it out, and then the casing on this will just pop around the sides. You just take it off and then pop it onto your new drive and slide it into the SATA port and screw it down with one screw. It's super easy. You guys could figure that out without me even telling you, I would imagine. All right, next up, let's upgrade the RAM. I just like to go all out and upgrade to 16 gigabytes in each. Now, this can only take 16 gigabytes because of the CPU limitations. So we're going to grab the value RAM from Kingston, and this is the 1600 megahertz. It's similar to the same speed that I think comes with it already, but getting 16 gigabytes of that is going to be nice. And then you'll have just more breathing room to do stuff. I love this stuff because I've never had any go bad, so that's a good track record for me personally. And it's really solidly made. So what you want to do is you put it in at an angle like this, right? and then it pops in all the way there. Then you press it down, and the two little hands on the other side here, the two little prongs, they grip it. So again, go in at that angle, and it will go all the way down at the angle. If you try to put it in while it's all the way down, it won't go in all the way. Typically, I mean, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. And if you want to go a little bit more extreme, you can check out the HyperX 2133 MHz DDR3 kit. Now, this one will give you a few extra FPS in games, maybe just be a little bit snappier. And I didn't have to mess with anything in the settings or BIOS when I plugged it in. It just worked, and it worked at 2133 right out of the box. So, highly recommend the HyperX 2133 MHz kit. Okay, it's time to swap out the CPU, right? You guys wanted to talk about the CPU. So the CPU is pretty easy to remove and that sort of thing. It's actually super easy to remove. Now, which CPU should you put in this? And I'm only going to recommend a couple different CPUs. There's several that work, but if you're going all out, go all out. The one that I would highly recommend is the i7-4910QM. You guys can get like an Extreme series part, but those are going to run too hot, and you're going to end up throttling, so you'll be better off with the 4910. Now, the 4910 is a quad-core part that's hyper-threaded, so you're going to have a lot of performance right there. It turbos up to 3.9, so again, that's a really fast CPU. It's a 45-watt part that's going to go in here. And above and beyond that, the 4910 is slightly newer than the 4900, so it has better thermals, even though it's a little faster. If you guys do see a 4900, don't be afraid of it. I grabbed one of these for the other laptop, and it all depends on the price. Like sometimes you'll find one cheaper than the other. It's just, if you find a 4900 MQ that's like half the price of a 4910, as long as it works and the guy has good feedback on eBay, that's going to be a fine option, maybe 2 or 3% slower than the 4910. But 4910 is the king. Those are your two different options there. I wouldn't really go with anything else. If you want an i5, why are you messing around with this video? One thing to note, when you're taking out your CPU, the screws stay attached. And you'll want to make sure that you carefully remove the fan. It's plugged in right over here. I mean, you leave the fan installed, but this comes up so easily. There we go. I'm going to try to keep that tape intact so I can leave it there. A little bit of thermal paste on there, not too much. Actually, around the sides there's quite a bit, but it's alcohol time. 99% is the best. This is 91, but it's what we've got. I'm going to let it dry a little longer to make sure there's no water. Just get a little bit on there. Don't need much. This one's pretty clean already, so just give it a wipe. And this guy here, I'm going to give him a good clean. Make sure there's no gunk, no residue, nothing getting in between the copper and the future thermal paste that's going to keep this in full contact with your CPU. Or you wouldn't need thermal paste if the surface was completely flat. The thermal paste that's coming off of there, what it does is it fills in the imperfections there so that there's a flat surface on top of there. Ideally, mirror here, mirror there. No thermal paste, but, Now for the CPU, you're going to have a Torx. This is T8. And you're going to want to turn it all the way until the nub is back here. You'll see a little LED flash once it's there. So make sure you've got all the gunk off. And you do not need a lot of thermal paste. There's our unit. Going to replace it with this one for the extra thermal mass. And this heatsink here is just going to go right over this blacked out space where the GPU would have been, like so. I'm not going to put it down there yet because I need to clean this out, but it'll fit in there very easily with the single screw. All right, so here's an interesting option. If you are using the version that does not have the NVIDIA GPU, you'll notice on one of these we have the NVIDIA GPU and the heatsink has an extra pipe and an extra spot. Well, if you're using the regular laptop that just has the Intel, no NVIDIA, you'll notice that there's no NVIDIA GPU there. It's just a little blacked out section on top of the motherboard. Well, what you guys can do is you can actually grab the heatsink, the model number 00HM903. And that's the heatsink that's made for the Intel plus NVIDIA. And you can put it in the laptop that just has the Intel, and that'll give you extra cooling because there's an extra heat pipe that's not going anywhere, giving you more thermal mass and more dissipation. The fan generally sounds a little better on this unit than it does on this one, but this one can run at a lower RPM because of the extra thermal mass right there. This one's actually quieter than mine, and this was very easy to install. You didn't need to put any thermal paste on the extra heatsink, just on your CPU. Now for your CPU, the heatsink, let's talk about that for just a second. If you guys want the best, and you want the best performance and the lowest temperature possible, you're going to want to grab some Thermal Grizzly. You guys can get some conductive stuff, but I wouldn't recommend it for this application. It's going to be a little tricky. So this is the best thing you can get that's like thermal grease that's not conductive. Thermal Grizzly, y'all. Now I ordered some of this, didn't come in. And I've been fighting with Amazon being like, where is this stuff? They said it was delivered. I can't find it. So I ended up having to go for my MX4 thermal compound. It's the Arctic MX4. It's good. Maybe 1 or 2 degrees warmer, but I'll live. If the Thermal Grizzly shows up, I might repaste these things. But I'm recommending that you guys get the Thermal Grizzly. Okay, next up. The Intel, the cheaper laptop, it didn't have a backlit. So all those late night sessions sitting in your room, hiding under your blankets, looking at unicorns on the internet. What do people do? I don't even know what people do. I don't care what you guys do. You're going to want some backlighting. So we need to replace that keyboard. Now you'll notice there are 2 little indentations on the bottom of the keyboard that are just big enough for a small Phillips head screwdriver. You're going to want to gently insert a screwdriver into those little nubs and push it up. The keyboard cover will sort of slide up, and then you'll notice there are 6 screws, 2 on the bottom and 4 across the middle of the keyboard. They're very small Phillips screws. Go ahead and loosen those up, and then you can very gently wiggle the keyboard loose. Now once you do this, you'll notice there are 2 ribbon cables on the back, and they do have latches. It's very simple. You can even grab some of your tweezers if you're a little worried about using your hands, and gently lift up the latches and remove the ribbon cables. Insert your new keyboard by first putting the ribbon cables in, and then after the ribbon cables are secured and latched, what you want to do with your new backlit keyboard is first insert the top of the keyboard into the top of the enclosure and then lay it down and put your screws in. And that's how you do it. You have to make sure that if you do it any other way, it's going to be weird. You're going to break stuff. You have to put the top in at an angle and slide it sort of under the little, the little bezel there before you do anything else. Lay it back down, screw it back together, and then use the 2 screwdrivers to slide the covering back down, and it'll look like nothing ever happened, and you'll have backlighting. It's freaking beautiful. The touchpad on this, it really sucks. It really, really sucks. Doesn't have any physical buttons. It's really floppy. It just doesn't feel very responsive. It's one of the worst touchpads that I've ever used. But you can get one of these. You guys want to make sure you get the Synaptic touchpad, not the Alps. The Synaptic one is better. One of the ways that you can tell which one is which is the Synaptic has sort of a, rough texture on the back, whereas the Alps has a smooth texture. Now, getting this to work on Windows, I gave up. It's when the latest version of Windows 10 did not want to install the drivers. I tried and tried and tried. Windows 7 may have worked. I was trying all kinds of different things. I was trying to disable. I disabled Windows from forcing the signing of drivers. It installed, didn't work. So I finally just had to give up. Also, I want to mention that the ribbon cable on the back of this is extremely difficult to work with and remove. You're going to have to use the tweezers to make sure that it's in there all the way. If you're using Linux, Arch Linux or something like that, this should just work. You may have to do some finagling to get all the buttons to work correctly, but this should just plug in and work. The Synaptic touch devices should just be like, yep, there it is. I see it. But Windows doesn't do that. And the other thing is, even if you do manage to get this installed in Windows, you're going to have to go in and tell Windows to stop trying to reinstall or update to better new drivers because it'll break this thing. It's a much better touchpad. This is the one from the T450. You guys can just grab a T450 palm rest for cheaper than you can usually buy these things and remove it from the T450 palm rest and put it into this palm rest. But I'm going to just switch back to the regular one because here's the deal. All touchpads suck. I don't care what anybody says. They're all garbage. This is the worst way to, it sucks. I hate these things. So I always carry a mouse with me. And you'll see me if I have to like use a touchpad for more than like 30 seconds, I'm just sitting there being like, screw this. I'm just going to do this when I get home because no, I'm not using a touchpad. So I always carry a mouse with me, like a little mouse in my backpack. It's with me 24/7. Whenever I have my laptop, there's also a mouse. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a mouse all the time. And you guys should too. But sorry I couldn't give you a better tutorial on this thing. I spent hours and hours messing with drivers and just finally had to give up because it was eating up my entire week. So that's it. Now we have two beastly laptops here. And one's going to be for Justin, one's going to be for me. And you know what's going to happen? This thing's so fast that we're going to sell Justin's Xeon-based desktop rig. He doesn't use it for gaming all that much or anything like that. And we grabbed one of these Lenovo ThinkPad docks. It's really cool. You set it down. It's got USB 3. It's got DisplayPort. It's got HDMI. It's got, you know, whatever else you need. It's got a ton of options on the back here. Take a look at all this stuff right here. Just all kinds of things. VGA, DVI, just all these options. Ethernet as well. So he's just going to come into the office, plop his laptop down on there, and then he'll have the laptop screen plus 2 monitors, 3 monitors in total, and it'll be just as fast as the Xeon he was using because he wasn't taking advantage of those 14 cores. He was mainly only doing like basic stuff. So the frequency advantage is going to be here, 2.1 gigahertz Xeon versus a, you know, almost 4 gigahertz laptop. And if you're not doing that many things, the quad core will probably do better. As far as like editing and videos and that sort of thing goes, this quad core is going to be able to chew it up, no problem. The NVIDIA may help you a little bit, but not enough to like matter. The other thing that's really cool about this laptop is at 14 inches, you can play most of your games at 720p and they look just fine on this screen. So if you're traveling and that sort of thing, it's a great way to catch up on gaming. They'll play even most modern games on medium settings. But as far as like old school gaming goes, you guys can play old school games all day long. And World of Warships works just fine on this. So I had a lot of fun checking that game out. So thanks again to them for sponsoring this video. But I didn't expect to like play that game for too long. It was like, oh, I'll do an advertisement. I ended up playing it longer than I thought I would because it was a bit of fun. So check that out. The link's in the top of the description. And links to all of the upgrades are in the description as well. Actually, it's a link to the website where it has everything listed. Last but not least, be sure to grab yourself a shirt on epicpants.com. We got a couple new ones on there too. And this shirt is back in stock. Google does not care about you. It's the truth. And it's back in stock, reprinted. I'm only doing 50 of these. So after they're done, they're gone for a while. Maybe you'll come back in a couple of years. But there's 50 of these in the store right now, guys. So epicpants.com. We'll see you guys in the comments. Thanks to Lenovo. Thanks to Legion. Thanks to your mom. I don't know. Thanks to everything. Bye. First thing we're going to do is just... Maybe I should put it in the right way, you jackass.